Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Treasury of Constantinople. This week we'll talk about a very common kind of coin, the VOT coins. We'll focus on the standard VOTA coins from Constantine the Great and his sons, and then have a look some other VOTA coins from the period, like the vows of Thessalonica, the Virtus Exercit type, the two victories, the Beata Tranquillitas, and the Rara Romae Aeternae type. Before we get into it though, let's have a little bit of a background story. First, a bit of Latin. Constantine's VOTA types usually have the letters VOT on them, which is, as you may have guessed already, an abbreviation of VOTA, which means vows or prayers. The singular form is votum. VOTA coins are interesting because they give an insight into the religion of the Romans. In the context of pagan Rome, and yes, I know Constantine was the first Christian emperor, but these coins existed before Constantine. So, in the context of pagan Rome, vota were a kind of promise made to a deity in return for a specific favor. This was a very common thing. A merchant wanted to take his merchandise from port A to port B. He promised he would surely give a part of it as an offering to a god if he made it in one piece across the sea. A general wanted to win a battle. He promised he would surely give a portion of the war booty to some temple if he won the battle. And an emperor wanted to have a long reign? Well, he promised the deities he would surely do some specific thing if his reign reached 10, 20, or 30 years. If it seems like the Romans were bargaining with their gods, it's because they were. Roman paganism was very contractual in that sense, as many pagan religions tend to be. Note that if the thing that was requested wasn't fulfilled, then the promises that were made wouldn't be fulfilled either. These vows could be made by a single person, but also by the public, in which case they'd be called vota publica, public vows, and made in votive festivals. These festivals were very much part of the Roman religion, and were a very common occurrence. For example, every year started with a votive festival, where incense would be burned, animals sacrificed, and public games held. Vows would be made for the health and safety of the emperor and the empire. The beginning of the reign of an emperor was also marked by such votive festivals, which would be renewed every 10 years. Early coins depicting this can be found from the reigns of emperors like Hadrian and Caracalla. In the 3rd century, we start seeing coins depicting victory holding a shield with the legend VOTX, like this one from Severus Alexander, or even with the legend fully spelled out like this example from Emperor Maximinus Thrax. Some VOTA coins also came out during the period of the Tetrarchy like this one from Diocletian. But this video is about Constantinian bronzes, so here we go. This is the typical design of Constantinian votive coins. In the middle you can see the letters VOT, in this case short for votus, not vota, because grammar. Below that comes the year 5, 10, 20, or 30. For this coin, the legend is VOT20, so it means something along the lines of vows for 20 years of rule. A common variation has the addition of mult, short for multis, meaning more. So then the legend means vows for 20 years of rule and more for 30 years. Sounds strange, but hopefully with the context it makes sense now. Note that the vota are always made in advance, asking for something to happen in the future, and so too are the coins. Votive festivals for the reign of an emperor happened every 10 years, possibly every 5. As for the coins which reflected the promises the emperors made during those festivals, they were minted whenever the mints felt like minting them. For example, VOT 20 coins were minted in the 14th year of Constantine's reign, so 6 years before year 20, while VOT 5 coins were in the 3rd year of the reign of Caesars Crispus, Constantine II, and Licinius II, that's 2 years before the 5th year, and on the 1st year of the reign of Caesar Constantius II, so 4 years before. As I said, whenever the mints had some free time and the proper disposition. Note also that not every emperor had these coins minted for every 5 or 10 years of his reign, and that even when these coins were minted, they weren't minted in all mints. Last small note to keep in mind, votive coins with this design were minted by Constantine the Great, and his sons Crispus, Constantine II, and Constantius II as Caesars, as well as Licinius I and his baby son, the Caesar Licinius II, then Constantius II and Constans after they became emperors, and their cousin Julian after he became Julian II, then Jovian, Valentinian III, and his sons Valentinian II and Gratian. then Theodosius I, his son Arcadius, and grandson Theodosius II, and finally, Valentinian III. Okay, let's now have a look at each of the reverse types in more detail. It is very possible that making vows on or for the 5th year of reign was a common practice, but the first time that it showed up on Roman coinage was during the time of Constantine the Great and Licinius. Between 320 and 324, a number of mints issued coins for the 5th year of reign of their sons, the Little Caesars, Crispus, Constantine II, Constantius II, and Licinius II. The reverse of the coins has the legend VOTV surrounded by a laurel wreath, and around the legend Caesarum Nostrorum to our Caesars, or Dominorum Nostrorum Caes, meaning for our lords, the Caesars. Remember that at this point our Lord is still used in the general sense and not specifically for God. The obverse of the coins shows the portrait of the Caesars. Note that there is more than one obverse type for each Caesar with different portraits and legends. A few decades later, a very similar coin was minted by the emperors Jovian, Gratian, Theodosius I, Valentinian II, and Arcadius. The most notable difference between the two series is that the later VOTV coins are smaller, usually AE4, while the earlier ones are AE3, and that the later ones are missing the legend around the wreath. The later ones are also rarer. Around the same time that the first series of VOTV coins were minted, 320 to 324 AD, VOTX coins were also minted for 3 of the Caesars, almost exclusively on the Western mints. These coins are essentially identical to the VOTV coins. There is nothing to add, so let's move on to the next. Still in the early 300s, VOTXX coins were minted in the names of Constantine I and Licinius. These coins, like the VOTV from the Caesars, also have a second legend around the wreath. There are many iterations of the legend, but they always include the name of the emperor. So for Constantine, we have, for example, DN Constantini, Max AVG, while for Licinius, we have DN Lic Licini AVG. In 325, the mint at Ticinum made VOTXX coins for the Caesars Crispus and Constantine II. These have the abbreviated legend Dominor Nostror Caes. There are also some coins minted in Rome for Constantine the Great, Crispus, Constantine II, and Licinius II that don't have any legend around the wreath. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any pictures of them online. They should look exactly the same, though, only without the legend. And later in 434 AD, Valentinian III, again in Rome, also had VOTXX coins minted, but it was a considerably smaller AE4 type. The only emperor that had coins with VOTXXX was Constantine the Great, and it was minted only in Ticinium, Rome, Heraclea, and Constantinople. The reverse always has the legend DN Constantini Max AVG around the wreath, while the obverse shows the bust of the emperor to the right. There are 5 different variations of the bust, but they're all very similar. Just the face and the diadem look a bit different. The legend is either Constantinus AVG or Constantinus Max AVG. Much later, in the 5th century, Theodosius II will also have XXX and even XXXV types. There are many VOT mult types, but most are on the rarer side, so let's just look at the 2 most common ones. After the death of Constantius II in 361, his cousin Julian became Emperor Julian II. He only reigned for 2 years, dying in 363 while fighting against the Persians. Julian's most well-known coin, and certainly the most affordable, is this one. It was issued in 13 mints around the empire, and these coins are usually slightly larger and heavier than most other Constantinian VOT types. He is depicted wearing a helmet and holding a shield and a spear. Note that there are 4 variations of this obverse portrait. Later, Jovian, Gratian, Valentinian II, Theodosius I, and Arcadius also minted coins with this reverse type. They are smaller AE4 as these late VOT coins usually are. The last reverse type for this group of coins is the XX mult, XXX. It was minted by the brothers Constantius II and Constans around 347. That's 10 years after they became emperors. These coins were only minted on the eastern mints of Heraclea, Constantinople, Cyzicus, Nicomedia, Antioch, and Alexandria. Not sure why. As you'd expect, though, the majority are in the name of Constantius. Something interesting, I find it interesting anyway, is that these coins are rather small, usually AE4. Later, around 378 to 383, the emperors Gratian, Valentinian II, Theodosius I, and Arcadius also minted coins with the same reverse type. They are almost identical to the earlier ones, and they're also small AE4 coins. The only difference is that the later coins are much rarer and usually in worse condition. Also, maybe it's a coincidence, but they were minted in the exact same mints as those from Constantius and Constans. We'll note one more time that because these vota or vows are an essential part of Roman culture, that there really are many, many coins that have this legend on them since way back in the 2nd century and well into the 5th century. A few more examples before we move on to the second part of the video. Some types have the legend votus either with or without the laurel wreath, and there are also some really cool herbs, Roma and Constantinopolis obverses mixed with VOTXX, malt, XXX, reverses, etc., etc. If you're wondering whether there are any silver and gold votive coins, fear not, those exist too. The silver ones usually follow the same design of the follies, like this Siliqua from Constantius II, and this one from Julian. The gold coins are something else, though. The Byzantine Empire got fabulously wealthy because of trade, and its solidus was trusted both inside and outside the empire, with inflation of the bronze and silver coins never affecting the gold solidus. I think I mentioned it in the video about Byzantine mints that the Mint of Constantinople had 10 workshops specialized in gold coinage and only 5 for bronze. To give another example of the importance of Byzantine gold coins, recently while working on the video about the coins from the Justinian dynasty, I noticed just how many more designs there are for solidus in comparison to follis, for example, between the 4th of April and 1st of August of 527, so for a period of just a bit over 4 months, special coins were issued with the names of both Justin I and his successor Justinian. Constantinople minted 2 follis types and 14 different types of solidus. But I digress. Here are 2 beautiful votive gold coins. Now that that's out of the way, Adelaide picked 5 other vota types from the time of Constantine for us to have a closer look at. These all fall into the category of votive coins, while having a very different design from the standard ones we saw before. Our first special issue is the Vows of Thessalonica. In 318, Constantine was emperor in the west, while Licinius was emperor in the east. The two of them had been having, let's say, a bit of a disagreement, but around this time, they happened to be at peace with each other, and the Mint of Thessalonica, for some reason, issued special types with vows for 20 years for both Constantine and Licinius. Likewise, they made 5-year vow types for the 3 Caesars, Crispus, Constantine II, and Licinius II. Note that while the reverse is always the same, there are multiple obverse types for each of the 5. Next up is the Virtus Exercit type. It was minted around 320, again by both Constantine and Licinius, as well as the 3 Caesars, Crispus, Constantine II, and Licinius II. The reverse shows a standard inscribed with VOTX or VOTXX between 2 seated captives, and there's a legend around that reads Virtus Exercit, short for Virtus Exercitus, meaning courage of the army. This type was minted in Londinium, Lugdunum, Arelate, Treveri, Aquileia, Ticinium, Thessalonica, and Siscia. As usual, there are small variations in the design of the elements like the captives and standards. With the obverses, though, they clearly went a little wild. Sometimes the emperor is depicted with a laurel crown, sometimes the radiate crown, sometimes with a helmet, sometimes holding a spear, so there really is quite a lot of variation. Here are some examples. The 2 victories type is a fairly common type. Though introduced by Constantine, we can find obverses of all 5 rulers of the time, the Augusti Constantine and Licinius, and 3 Caesars Crispus, Constantine II, and Licinius II. The reverse shows 2 victories holding a shield inscribed with VOTPR, Vota Populi Romani, which translates to Vows of the Roman People. This shield is atop a column and an iteration of the legend Victoriae Laetae Princeps Perpetuus, the joyful victories of the eternal prince, is around. It was minted around 318 to 320 in Londinium, Lugdunum, Arelati, Treveri, Tacinum, and Siscia. As it was originally minted by Constantine in his own mints, there are considerably less examples of this type with Licinius and Licinius II. What there is a lot of is barbaric imitations of this type, which is always fun. As usual, there are small variations on the design of some elements like the angels, but mostly the altar. On the obverse, the headgear went a little wild again. While the Caesars and Licinius show mostly with laurels, Constantine's coins show him with various different kinds of helmets. Next is the Beata Tranquillitas type. It was minted only by Constantine and his sons, Crispus and Constantine II, around 321 to 324. New collectors might like this type because it was issued in 3 cool mints, Londinium, Lugdunum, and Treveri. Cats might also like it because, well, let's focus. The design of the reverse is a globe on an altar inscribed with Votus XX and 3 stars above. Around, it reads Beata Tranquillitas, meaning blessed tranquility. Some issues have an abbreviation of that legend. Note the altar, the globe, and the stars all show small design variations. As for the obverses, see for yourselves. The last coin we'll have a look at today is also one of the most beautiful, and that's the Roma Eterna type. It was minted around 318 to 320 AD. The reverse design depicts Roma seated on a shield, holding a smaller shield inscribed with the legend XV and the legend Romae Aeternae, to everlasting Rome around. To the left and the right you can see the letters PR, possibly short for Populi Romani, the people of Rome. This type was minted by Constantine the Great only in Rome, with vows for 15 years. This was the first coin to mention year 15. Constantine also issued coins in the names of his 2 eldest sons, the Caesars Crispus and Constantine II, and his co-emperor Licinius I and his son, the baby Caesar Licinius II. Note that on the obverse, all the Caesars are wearing laurels, Licinius is wearing a helmet, and Constantine has a few obverse types, some with laurels, some with a helmet. And that's it for this one. If we made any mistakes or missed anything important about this topic, please leave a nicely worded comment below. Have a nice morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on when you're watching this video. And I hope to see you next time. Also, if you like collecting coins, or know someone who does, feel free to check out Adelaide's eBay store, the Spanish Galleon. We're also on Instagram, links in the description.